The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network. It's time for the ODU Wrestling Monarch Matcast, a show dedicated to all things related to the Old Dominion Wrestling program. On the web at monarchmatcast.com. Now, here's your host, three-time National Wrestling Writer and Broadcaster of the Year, and 2004 ODU alumnus, Jason Bryant.
Episode 64 of the ODU Wrestling Monarch Matcast. We have a familiar face, a repeat guest, but it's been a while since he's been on the show. New assistant coach Kevin Beazley returning to Hampton Roads. Coach Beazley, that just sounds weird. That makes me feel old, man. Welcome back to Hampton Roads.
Thank you. Yeah, I like the sound of Coach Beazley.
Coach Beazley. I mean, thing is, that's not you. That's your dad. Your dad is Coach Beazley. You're Kevin. How do you deal with that, man?
Right, yeah, it's different. My dad's always been Coach Beazley, and so to hear the guys on the team already call me that, it's a little weird, but I like it.
So let's just dial it back and kind of set the stage to how you ended up coming back. You were an All-American in your 19,000th year of eligibility at Old Dominion. Then you had a typical red shirt. You had an Olympic or basically Olympic activities or that type of red shirt. You were on the ladder. Then you had the opportunity to go back home and wrestle for the University of Michigan as a graduate student. And, a lot was made about your ODU tattoo on your arm there. And, you said you were going to cover it up. I didn't see it covered up a whole lot when you were at Michigan.
Yeah, I never covered it up. The coaching staff in Michigan was great with, they understood I graduated from ODU. And that was really the reason I had the opportunity to wrestle at Michigan was because I did what I had to do at Old Dominion and graduated in the 4 years that I was there academically. And so they respected that I still took a lot of pride in where I came from undergrad. And so, yeah, they were awesome about that, and that never made me cover it up.
Was it, looking back on it, ultimately you wrestled that last season of eligibility at Michigan. You got hurt at the Big Ten tournament. You didn't have a chance to compete at the NCAA championships in the maize and blue. But when you look back on the opportunity, I mean, what do you look back on with that opportunity, I guess is the better question.
Yeah, well, I got to learn a lot. And I think, given my position now, I think it's going to help me tremendously because I got to have two different coaching staffs and two different philosophies that I'm going to be able to build upon as a coach. And I got to experience that in two different programs. So I got to experience Steve with my 5 years at ODU, and I got to experience what that was like. And, we had a couple of different coaches while I was here. But then I got to go to Michigan and learn in a Big Ten room and see what that philosophy was like and see what that daily grind was like. So I have two different perspectives to pull from, which not a lot of coaches have, right? Not a lot of coaches got to transfer in their career and experience the different things that I was able to experience. So I think, looking back, it's a blessing what I went through because, I'll be able to pull from a lot of different great minds to help me develop my coaching style moving forward.
You're still active wrestling on the international scene, and you've kind of bounced between Greco and freestyle. You were in the World Team Trials Finals a couple years ago in Greco-Roman, sitting there knocking people off at the Open and the Challenge tournament in freestyle. And what are your future plans when it comes to international wrestling? As we got an Olympic year coming up in 2020.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to finish the quad, and then I'll reevaluate my situation, see what my body feels like. But I have a great opportunity here, training and coaching, I enjoy competing. So Steve and I have talked about it, and I wrestle in all the major U.S. events. So I wrestle obviously the U.S. Open where you have to place top 5 to qualify. I'll wrestle NYC and I'll wrestle the Schultz this year, and then hopefully qualify for the Olympic trials and make another run at it. I just enjoy competing And as I coach, I feel like the more I try to teach people, the more I pick up on the mistakes I make myself. And so it's definitely going to be different than training full time. But I'm ready to embrace that opportunity and see where it takes me.
We look at the dynamic of the coaching staff. Things have changed. Of course, that's one thing people are going to want to know about. Daryl Thomas is in his second full year on the staff. Then you've come on as an assistant coach. Steve Blythe, who recently finished his career at the University of Minnesota, has come on as a volunteer assistant. And that means we had to say goodbye to two assistants. Steven Rodriguez has decided to make a career change, and he's headed out, I believe, to work in the private world, as we say in wrestling, and move out to Colorado, while Chris McCarty has had success at the amateur MMA level. He's going to turn pro, and then he's headed back to his native California. And while you didn't have a whole lot of time to cross paths with Steve Rodriguez, what do you remember most about Chris McCarty?
Oh, Chris is awesome. Super high energy, a go-getter when it comes to work ethic. And since he was training while he was here, right, getting ready to fight and do all those things, he was a great example of just work ethic for the guys in the room. Because he was always getting his extra workouts in on top of the team workouts, making sure he was ready for his fight. And so he was just a great role model and a guy that the guys on the team could look up to when it came to work ethic. And then he was always super high energy when he's in the room. Technical wizard, knows a lot about a lot of different positions. And then he was a great workout partner. I think he was Larry Early's main workout partner this year. And so he brought a lot to the table, and made a lot of these guys better, and then showed them the way too with his work ethic. And I think he's going to carry that on wherever he goes, and he's going to accomplish some big things when he turns pro.
Steve Blythe comes in. He started his career at Northern Illinois and then finished up at Minnesota. Larry actually wrestled him at the NCAA championships, which is kind of an interesting thing. But you guys are both from Michigan here too. So is there a relationship with Steve Blythe going back in the day?
Right. So I actually didn't know him that well coming out, but I got to know him a little bit actually when college started. My longtime rival and actually friend, Sean Scott, was on his team for a little bit at Northern Illinois, and then I got to talk with Steve a little bit in passing every now and then. And then when he transferred to Minnesota, we got to talk a little bit too more when we would wrestle Minnesota, and we had that Michigan connection. And then obviously now that he's on staff, he hasn't moved down to Virginia just yet, but we've had conversations and stuff. That dude loves the sport of wrestling. He just loves it, loves everything about it, and it's going to be a lot of fun to work with him, just because he has a real passion for the sport.
Yeah, he's definitely going to make the trainer's table a lot more interesting, because as an athlete at Minnesota, he was braced up, he was taped up, he was stitched up. You want to talk about Chris McCarty talking about kind of a role model when it comes to work ethic. You want to talk about a role model and becoming just a bruiser and the walking wounded. That's Steve Blythe.
Oh yeah. So I don't know if I don't want to blow up his spot, but I'm pretty sure he wrestled the national tournament with torn rotator cuff, labrum, and bicep tendon, which he just got fixed up. But yeah, that's what that big brace was on. Yeah, he was wrestling injured, pushed through it, found a way, and I mean he's still around his 12. So that speaks a lot to his character. He's wrestling out there with a blown out shoulder and still finding ways to beat some of the best guys in the country.
Now we go back and talk about, you've had your share of injuries in your career, and that kind of takes a toll on you as an athlete. How do you kind of recover from that now that you've got a position, where you're leading kids, you're coaching?
Right. Yeah. Injuries happen, and whether it's a freak accident or it's gradual over time, it happens. And so, I mean, and with my situation, I wasn't able to wrestle. So I'll know how to talk to a guy if a situation like that happens. But, and then there's Steve, who obviously, was able to wrestle with his injury, and he found a way. And so obviously if you're able to wrestle and you want to try it, then by all means, we know what to do, to get you through. My junior year, I broke my hand at the national tournament. And thank goodness our trainer knew someone who could hook me up with a numbing shot, and we figured it out. And I wrestled the blood round, and then the rounds after that with a broken hand. Brett Favre snapped me on my face. My hand took the brunt of that snap. But you sometimes just got to figure it out. I don't think anyone's ever healthy at that tournament. Yanni won a national title on a torn ACL, right? So no one's ever healthy there. So I think having guys who have wrestled that tournament injured, it helps just to let them know that, hey, everyone's injured, whether it's taped or not. Everyone there's hurt.
Did you have any discussions when you were in the room at Michigan that last year about the MAC, about Old Dominion, and kind of maybe the misconceptions that maybe the bigger programs have about the mid majors like ODU?
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, people always look at, I guess, from a fan standpoint, a lot of the focus is on the Big 12, the upper half of the EIWA, and the Big 10, and Missouri had been kind of leading the way in the MAC. And, some people look at the smaller conferences, maybe not being as tough. Was there anything that you kind of taught the guys in the Michigan room about coming through the MAC and coming through Old Dominion?
Right. Yeah. So one of the years we had almost as many qualifiers coming out, like at my weight class out of the MAC. I think we had 6. Big 10 only had like 8 coming out of 97. And so I was a big proponent, and it doesn't matter where you wrestle. So it's like, these guys are going to be tough, right? We're all Division I for a reason. And, we're going to come and everyone's going to try to punch you in the mouth when they toe that line. So, and I don't think, like, at least from the wrestling room that I was in, Michigan didn't have that ego where they were better than everyone. Our coaching staff did a really good job of keeping us focused there on taking everyone seriously, and every match was important. But I have seen from the fan standpoint, Big Ten or bust when it comes to toughness. But as an athlete and coach's standpoint, I've never seen it from that side.
Well, it's also now an interesting dynamic to look at the makeup of the coaching staff. Of course, Steve Martin wrestled at Iowa. Daryl Thomas wrestled at Illinois. Steve Blythe wrestled at Minnesota. You wrestled at Michigan. So every coach on the staff has Big Ten athletic experience. So there's a plus right there. Right.
Yeah, we get it. And so I think, especially Steve and I, Steve Blythe, we have the best of both worlds, where we've wrestled in the small conference and we've wrestled in the big conference, and we can kind of pull from those experiences and make it the best of both worlds for the guys on our team.
Part of that is also the element of recruiting, because there's always, the MAC now expands from, I think, Western, maybe Nova Scotia to California for all I know. In actuality, it spans from, Pennsylvania out to Missouri with the way that the league is set up, and, with bringing in the EWL, and there's going to be a lot more battles in Pennsylvania and Ohio for these teams as the MAC has expanded. And, what are your thoughts about the MAC expansion and how your experience and Steve's experience on staff is going to help with the recruiting game, knowing that you guys are right there, the kids' age, you're going to be right there, what they're going through?
Yeah, so I think us merging with EWL is huge. And like you said, one, on a recruiting standpoint, because we want to recruit guys that, up and down the East Coast into Pennsylvania. And then now it's going to be really easy for us to say, hey, we're going to have you competing in front of your home crowd more than a lot of these other schools. And then it's going to give our guys more opportunities to qualify for the national tournament. I think we're the second biggest conference now behind the Big 12 in terms of number of schools, which should, just by pure volume, should increase the number of qualifiers you get out of the conference. And so you're going to have more opportunities to make it to the tournament. And we're probably not going to catch the Big Ten still. They're probably still going to hit high numbers in the 70s, right? But I think we should be competing with the Big 12 in terms of number of qualifiers, which is huge, right? When you're recruiting guys, they want to know that they have an opportunity to make it to the national tournament, because anything can happen once you get there.
One thing I do want to bring up, it's something you didn't have an opportunity to do while at Old Dominion. You did have that opportunity while at Michigan. It's kind of a tangent a little bit from what we were talking about recruiting in the MAC, but you had the opportunity to beat an Iowa Hawkeye in Carver Hawkeye Arena. Just talk about that experience for a little bit.
Yeah, and that was a big seller when I was going through the process of transferring and finding a grad school that was the right fit for me. And Sean just talked about it. He said not many guys have the opportunity to go into Carver and beat a Hawkeye. And and I touched on it in some interviews before on how I dreamed of wrestling in Carver. But I don't think I could have written the script for what actually happened in that dual meet. I don't think I could have written it better than how it turned out. Dual meet kind of came down to Kuhn and I in the back half of our lineup. If I win, we're probably going to win the duel, because Adam Kuhn's a hard guy to take out. And if I lose, Kuhn's going to have to pin Sam Stoll, which is, also very tough.
It's kind of a hard thing to do. I mean, that guy's huge.
Yeah, both the guys were undefeated going into that match, and I think Kuhn ended up winning like 3-1 or 3-2. So if I'd have lost, Kuhn needing a fall probably would have been quite the stretch. And maybe I don't even know if a fall would have done it. I think we only won by 2, even with me winning. So a fall might not have done it had I lost. So anyways, I don't think I could have written that script better. I had a target on my back against the guy I was wrestling. It was Cash Wilkie, the guy I'd beaten the blood round the year before. So that was unbelievable, and it was a great experience, great opportunity. I've never wrestled in front of more hostile fans in my entire life. I don't think I've ever been booed so hard. It was so much fun. That was an incredible experience.
I mean, that's one of those fan bases that even puts your dad, kind of neutralizes his vocality.
Yeah, my dad's loud and he likes to yell, but and he probably was yelling at those fans after I won, but I definitely couldn't hear him. That's for sure. Those boos were pretty incredible.
Yeah, I just still think the whole scenario behind it was interesting because it was, you'd dropped a couple matches and then there's Cash Wilkie, the guy. Yeah, as you said, you had beaten. Well, he was the last guy into the tournament. You wrestle him to place with the broken hand. I mean, it was like, okay, you were like not the favorite on paper, but you were the favorite on paper. It was just a weird scenario on how all that came to be.
Yeah, it was super weird, right? Yeah, I think I was ranked 17th at the time. I had taken some bad losses. I think he was ranked 5th. He was out like 1 or 2 losses on the year. I just won Midlands. So he was on a upward trajectory. I was kind of on a down slope, and just weird how it all played out. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Up until the injury, was that the turning point for that season? It seemed like it seemed like you really started ramping it up after that.
Yeah, and so I mean, wrestling's hard, man, and especially when you have that target on your back. If you don't, I wasn't doing the best with my weight management. I wasn't doing the best with my extra conditioning, and my weight control was just it was tough. That last year took a toll on me. I was just struggling early on, and I started to figure it out, and I really turned it on at the Big Ten tournament. But wrestling's really hard, and all those guys, I was an All-American, so every time I stepped on the mat, I was getting some of the best. Right? I think at one point I was ranked 2nd in the country. A couple other guys had taken losses, and every time you toe that line, whether you're on a losing streak or not, these guys are ready to kill you, and you're getting their best every single time, especially when you have the AA next to your name. So. It made it difficult, and I was wrestling some young killers, like Eric Schultz from Nebraska, who was unranked at the time, but I think he got ranked as high as 5th this past year. That dude, I was up like 6-2, and he tried to like make my lungs fall out of my chest. So, yeah, some of those dudes, they came at me hard.
When it comes to finishing up, the coursework, I mean, what is, a lot of people look at, a master's degree is like, okay, it's a way for me to keep competing. Some people don't even finish it in that respect. And, people use it to transfer. I know there's a situation within the Big Ten that there may or may not be a national champion looking to transfer to a Big Ten school, looking to get a master's degree. But when let's talk about the actual coursework that goes involved with it. I spent 7 years as an undergrad. There is no freaking way I'm going to go back to school to get a master's degree. But explain what it's like to be working on a master's degree as a Division I athlete.
Yeah, so it's nice. NCAA kind of understands exactly what you're talking about. So as an undergrad, you have to be 12 credits per semester to be full-time. And then as a master's student, you only have to be 9 credits to be considered full-time. So I was in 9 credits both semesters while I was wrestling. So I was only and so all my classes were 3-credit classes. So I was only in 3 classes per semester, which made it a little bit easier, but it was still pretty tough. The coursework was difficult. All my classes it was 1 class a week, 3 hours long each. So I was only in class 3 times a week, but 3-hour sessions. And it was a lot of working with groups, right? Getting you ready for the real world where you're working in teams trying to solve problems. And that made it a little difficult because I traveled a lot. We were on the road a lot, and so it was tough, but it's just one of those things where it was important to me. So I made it a priority, and maybe that's why my weight I struggled a little more with my weight because I focused real hard on school. But no excuses. It was a lot of fun, and I'm really glad that I did it.
I understand Ann Arbor's a good food town, though.
Oh my goodness! And the other thing was I was living with guys who weren't wrestling. So I went from living with Mikey Hayes and Jack Deco, who are Mikey he still has a 6-pack. Jack and Mikey both still are shredded, not even wrestling anymore. They eat so clean. And then at that time they were training and eating clean, right? So I was living with guys who were wrestling and on the same schedule as me, and then I went to living with 2 guys who were graduated and not wrestling, right? And that was good because as a grad student, it was nice to live with people who had real jobs and they were kind of focused on adult life versus undergrad life. But it made it a little difficult because they would eat out a little more, and if I didn't feel like cooking, I could always eat out because someone wanted to eat out. Versus, when I lived with Jack Dickel and Mikey Hayes, they were never eating out. They were always cooking. So if I wanted to eat out, I would have to go by myself. So it was like, you know what, I might as well cook. But when I lived with those guys in Michigan, they were like, hey, we're going to go to Applebee's if you want to go. And I'm looking at that frozen chicken breast. I'm like, you know what, I guess I'll go to Applebee's, try to find something healthy. And so it tested my discipline a little bit. And, I started to figure it out towards the end of the year. But early on, yeah, it tested my discipline for sure.
What was the happiest thing you were able to eat when you got back to Hampton Roads?
So there's Sam's Texas Sub Shop. It's on Cali. Jack would go there once a week. Chris McCarty and Jack both have their picture up on the wall there. We frequented into that place quite a bit when we were undergrads. They know us by name. She still tells the best story about Steve. Everyone knows how he's quite intense. Coach Martin is a pretty intense guy. Most people he talks to, like they refer to him kind of like barking at him a little bit, and so. But she tells a story of when he brought his mom in there, and she said she didn't recognize him when he ordered. She said she's never seen him so polite. He asked her to take a picture of him and his mom, and she tells a pretty funny story about that, which is really cool.
Yeah, I'm on the map here. I'm on Google Maps seeing exactly where this place is because I don't believe it wasn't around when I was there. But I do see a name that was around when I was there, and that's Kogan's. So may not be the same location, but definitely I remember going to Kogan's a time or two.
Oh, Kogan's Pizza. Yeah, that's a pretty good spot, too. I think that spot they redid that spot. They added to the roof. And the Kogan's you might be talking about when you were there, was that more closer to Ghent?
Yeah, that was more. I was actually probably closer to, I would say it was off 21st more than it was anything else now that I think about it. But it was it was kind of more closer to campus on the edges of Ghent than it was actually in the neighborhood you're at right there. So, yeah, like I said, it's been a while since I've been to that part of town. But, like I said, I had to look up things because Max Barge was as old O'Sullivan's.
Yep, O'Sullivan.
Yeah, Kogan's was definitely on another spot. So I said, now I'm looking at what used to be there. I'm on the map. This is bad podcasting for you. So let's see. There's PJ's 19th hole, I think. Well, or if it's still there or not, I don't know. I can't see it on the map. That was a bad spot. But the Max Barge was O'Sullivan's Wharf. And when Mike Dixon first got the job, I'm going to interject a story here because you had to work out with Dixon a lot.
Oh, yeah.
That O'Sullivan's Wharf was one where a buddy of mine played quite a bit. So we went there, for things you did in college. But they had a trash can lid of nachos. And Dixon is the only human being on this earth I have ever seen eat the entire trash can lid of nachos by himself. So, that being said.
Which is crazy because that dude is one of the cleanest eaters I've ever been around. It's hard for me to believe.
Yeah, well, this would have been like 2005-ish. So,
okay.
Yeah, if you think about that, see, now I'm going to go back to Google Maps again. I'm just curious if PJ's is still there. Yeah, PJ's is still there. We won't talk about that because you know what PJ's means, right? Poor judgment. Yeah. So as we're getting back on task here, because if any recruits are listening to this, they're going to be curious what we're talking about. But I want to shift that to recruiting. We've got Fargo coming up here, which is the one of the biggest wrestling tournaments in the world. We're going to have probably 5,000 athletes across 6 divisions. The age group names have changed. It's still juniors and cadet 16U, but you'll be out there recruiting. Steve Martin will be out there recruiting. Steve Blythe will be out there coaching with Team Michigan. Daryl Thomas will be out there coaching with Team Illinois. And for those who have never experienced Fargo, what's it like for you?
Hey, this is awesome. This is going to be the first time I've been back since I wrestled there my senior year. But it's quite the experience. And when you're there your first time, it's a little overwhelming. Especially because I knew all about Fargo going in. But I love that tournament. You get to go and scrap in the international styles with some of the best guys in the country. And it's a great place to make a name for yourself. If you're not really on anyone's radar and you go and you can knock off some really good guys. And and give yourself an opportunity to be recruited, which is really cool. Because there's a good chance you're going to run into someone good while you're out there.
It's one of those things that wrestling on that stage, you've wrestled on that raised stage. You know what it's like to go out there and be in a final. And compare that to college wrestling. What's it like to wrestle Division I or to wrestle under the lights in Fargo?
Right. Yeah. I think that prepares you, gets you ready, because most of these dual meets, especially while I was at ODU, we were top 20 in attendance. We averaged 805 while I was here. So most of those matches, you were one-on-one in front of, an average of 805 people. And that's kind of what Fargo feels like. You get that spotlight on you. There's other matches going on, other placement matches, but it doesn't feel like it. It feels like it's just you and that guy wrestling in front of that whole crowd, which is pretty cool. And, yeah, I think it gets you kind of ready. You're wrestling someone else. If you're in the finals, you're wrestling someone else who's probably going to be wrestling D1 too. And, one of my finals, I wrestled Sammy Brooks in the finals on one of them. He was all right in college.
Not bad. Probably the best soundbite of the last 4 or 5 years after his Big Ten title.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely one of the best soundbites. And so, and so you're wrestling another stud in front of a bunch of people, and, anxiety is high and excitement is high, and you just get to let it fly, which is pretty cool.
The dynamic of recruiting on the road, and what's the one thing that you're going through this really for the first time. What are your expectations when you're going to be now from the kid that was getting all the calls as a highly ranked high school senior to the guy making calls trying to pitch people through Big Ten country that this school near the beach is the place for you to go? Right.
Yeah. So my goal right now is just to start developing really good relationships, and let these guys know that I'm going to be there for them, and that this process is hard, and while it's a lot of fun, it's difficult, because you gotta find the right spot that's home for you, and that is a fit for you, where you think you can win a national title. And we haven't had a national champion, and we have a guy on our team who very well could this year. He has the only returning win over the guy who's going to be ranked number 1. And so we have a guy who has a chance, but we're still looking for our first one. And so, we're looking for that guy to be the face of our program. And that's my thing, is just starting to build some relationships and let these guys know that you don't have to go Big Ten to make a name for yourself. You can make a name for yourself other places. And I think I'm a pretty darn good coach, and hopefully I can show that. And I also want to create a little pipeline, to get some more Michigan guys coming. Michigan is a pretty darn good state for wrestling, and so if I can steal some of those guys from the state, start getting them down to work with me and Blythe, have a little Michigan connection, that'd be cool, especially to pair with DT's Illinois connection. Get that little Midwest pipeline, that'd be cool.
Yeah, especially, again, it is one of the closest spots to a beach. I think Cal Poly's close, and I think the Citadel's close, and those are two very different atmospheres than ODU. That's
very
for sure.
Different. Yeah, very different atmospheres. Yeah, we got the best of both worlds here. You go 20 miles towards the water, you're on a beach, kind of city life, and then you go the other direction. You go 20 miles towards Chesapeake, and you do some hunting and fishing. So you got the best of both worlds. We can offer just about anyone, and from all different arrays of backgrounds. We got it covered, which is pretty unique. I don't know too many places where you can go 20 miles one direction and you're hunting deer, and then 20 miles the other direction during a nice little windstorm you can catch a surf. So I think that's pretty unique.
Man, you have already memorized the recruiting handbook right there. That's pretty good stuff. You didn't even you're not even a month on the job and you got this down.
Yeah, I did a little bit of recruiting while I was on campus here. I was quite the host. I think my record as a host, I think I was like 15-2. Steve gave me a guy and said, "Hey, go get him." I got 15. I had 2 guys not come, but one of the two has an asterisk next to it. So it was Brooks Clemens was one of the guys that I didn't get when he came on his recruiting trip, but then he ended up coming anyway. So the 15-2 has an asterisk next to it.
Yeah, I mean, you could go 1.5 on that because then Brooks left, and then he finished up. He was actually an All-American this past year at Bruton Parker in the NAIA, so just a little full circle on, as his old Twitter handle was, my man Brooks or something like that. That was actually pretty good.
My man Clemens, I think.
There's something like that. Now, speaking of Twitter, you're at K_Beazley24. You are going to be fighting your dad for the Coach Bees moniker here soon, but as we talk to coaching, where do you see long term? I mean, do you want to coach college? Do you want to be a Division I head coach? Where do you see this going as a career path?
Yeah, I want to be a Division I head coach, and so I'm in a great spot to learn. I'm picking some stuff up fast. We do a lot of unique things here that's helping me learn really quickly. And Steve trusts me, so he's putting a lot on my plate, which I really appreciate, which is really, and he knows he knows my goals. And so he's pushing me and giving me a lot of things to really help me learn, which I appreciate. So yeah, goal is to be a Division I head coach eventually. I have a lot to learn for sure, but that's the end goal for me.
And what are some things now as it relates to the team we got coming back? Pretty solid roster coming back. Should be knocking on the door of the top 20 in terms of the dual meet rankings and the tournament points, because there is some firepower when it comes to the national tournament that is going to be in the lineup. But what do you think you bring most to the staff? Where do you think you can help the current guys on the team kind of jump levels and break through to that next level?
Yeah, I'm excited for this team. I'm really excited for this team. We have a lot of talent up and down the board. And then I think just talking with these guys, I'm going to take over. I think Chris McCarty did a really good job of developing relationships with them and getting to know what makes them tick. And I think that's where I fit in, is help just developing some relationships and finding ways to motivate these guys and continue to work on what makes them tick. Not everyone's the same, right? Not everyone responds to the same type of motivation. And so I'm just working on getting to know these guys right now. And learning what's going to make them tick, what I'm going to need to say to them to get them to go to the next level in that match when they need it. Because everyone knows, you need that coach that can get you fired up when you need it. And so I'm trying to figure our guys out right now. We got a good group, and they're a lot of fun. They work hard, and it's going to be a lot of fun this year.
Who are you most excited to work with one-on-one? I realize that you got to coach all the guys, but is there anybody that you're just kind of waiting to get your hands on now that you've had a couple years away and you maybe have some old man strength coming to you?
Yeah, well, it's crazy. I mean, speaking of that, when I graduated, it's the craziest thing. As soon as I got back on the mat, I thought I was 10 times better. As soon as that pressure's off to where you have to win and you got to do it in a short amount of time, as soon as that's gone, it's like, oh wow, this wrestling stuff is so much different. It's easier. It's the craziest thing. I'm like so much better at folk style than I was when I was actually wrestling folk style. But Alex Kramer, incoming freshman, I got to drill. He was on campus a little bit getting ready for Fargo. When we worked out, I got my hands on him a little bit. He reminds me a lot of Jack Deco, just the way he moves, the way he hand fights, and I know that's a high compliment, and so I don't want to put too much pressure on the kid. But yeah, he reminds me a lot of Jack Deco. And then our obviously the 97-pounder is always going to have a little sweet spot in my heart. Because I was a 97-pounder, but both Tim Young and River Henry, who was a heavyweight, was making his way down. Both of those guys, they work really hard. They're picking stuff up fast, and they're fun to work with. And that could just be because 97 has a soft spot in my heart. Will Hilliard is heavyweight. He's picking my brain a lot too. He's always getting these extra workouts in. And then all these guys are working hard, so it's a lot of fun.
All right, we're going to wrap things up, but I'm going to lead off with a story that I'm going to do in Fargo. So throughout the course of the week on the Mad Talk Podcast Network, I'm going to be asking everybody what is their best/favorite story from Fargo. And that doesn't necessarily mean Fargo itself. It might be, for the old-timers, Cedar Rapids or Iowa City or Cedar Falls or Warrensburg, wherever it may be. So I'm going to start off with you here on the ODU Wrestling Monarch Madcast. What is your favorite story from Fargo?
Oh, this is embarrassing. My dad and my sister love to tell this. So my freshman year of high school, I wrestled 130, and then I wrestled 40 in Fargo. And then my sophomore year of high school, I wrestled 160. So I was growing while we were going through the transition in Fargo, but I had already committed to wrestling 140, and I was probably walking around that summer at about 65. So I was cutting from 65 to 40. And it was pretty cold in Fargo that summer. I don't know if you remember. It was the summer of 2009. It was pretty cold. Like some of the days it was in the 50s. And so I was outside running and trying to lose some weight, and I just couldn't sweat, couldn't get it off. My dad was heating up the car. We call it an MSU, a mobile sauna unit. And I jump in the back of his Yukon. It's all heated up. My sister's sitting in the front. I think she's in a bathing suit. The car was that hot. She's sitting in her bathing suit sweating. My dad's in shorts and the T-shirt, and I'm in the back. Like, my sister, she loves to make fun of me to this day. I'm in the back, like, about crying, begging my dad just to let me stop. And he's like, I told you could go 145. And I'm begging him, please don't make me ever do this again. And then a story after that is I never cut weight in Fargo after that. But yeah, that was the worst summer of my life, I think, cutting to 140. I almost never went back to Fargo. I didn't do very well. Thank goodness I kept with it.
All right, so there's the leadoff. I'm wondering how many people are actually going to tell something embarrassing about themselves. You've set the bar pretty high in terms of self-deprecating humor. So, Coach Beazley, as weird as that's going to be sounding for me, because I've been on tours with your dad as Coach Beazley. So, the next generation here back at Old Dominion. We'll see you in Fargo in a couple days. So, hey, welcome back to the staff, man.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
This show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.